Amazing. Okay, I am going to go ahead and get started and going to try to monitor the waiting room as we move into things. But again, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon for NCRC's fourth of five webinars in our 2025 series, Understanding Your Clients, Estimating SNAP E&T Eligibility and Referrals is the topic for today. And just to kind of review some quick expectations and do some brief introductions. Um, every session that we've done before this can be found on our website at ncrc.org/snap. I'll throw that in the chat. And next, we're going to be covering employer engagement strategies and some other things related to kind of once your program's off the ground, how to make sure that those career pathways are accessible and you have good relationships with employers and other folks in the business community. So that'll be covered next time in July. And we're also super excited to be joined by one of our partners at the Seattle Jobs Initiative, Andrew Schramm. So I'll go ahead and hand it off to you, Andrew, to let you introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Andrew Schramm. So good to be here with you today. Happy to see so many people on, so thanks for joining as well. I am a senior consultant with Seattle Jobs Initiative. I've been here for about 2 years, but I've worked in the SNAP E&T space for over 10 years now. Seattle Jobs Initiative is an organization that provides direct services, direct workforce services in the Seattle region, but also national consulting services on kind of data and also SNAP employment and training. We really enjoy working with states across the country and with providers like you across the country as well. So very happy to be here, and I'll pass it back to Simon.
Amazing. Thanks, Andrew. And because I didn't introduce myself, my name is Simon Wong. I am the Economic Mobility Specialist at NCRC. So I am on a team here of two. We're two strong on the Economic Mobility team that have headed up NCRC's work, creating resources and opportunities for third-party providers to learn more about SNAP E&T and just get involved with the program and learn more about what steps are required and how to get involved with your state. So I'm super excited for today's session. I'll go ahead and also invite everybody to introduce themselves in the chat as we go. Feel free to use that space for conversation and questions throughout the session today. Just name, position, organization, and maybe what brought you here today to give us a sense of what you're excited to learn about. Would be amazing. Um, Going to the next slide here, just going to review a couple of housekeeping items. So we are recording today's session, so that is currently being recorded, and we will also send out that recording with the slide deck for everybody afterwards. So don't feel the need to take any frantic notes throughout. We'll make sure to send all of this to you afterwards in an email. And again, feel free to use either the chat or I'm not sure if the Q&A feature is activated right now, but if it is, feel free to use any of the above ways to ask questions to do so. We highly encourage engagement throughout the session, and I'll be monitoring the chat to make sure that to pop in when there's an opportunity to dive deeper into a question. But we'll also have some time at the end to just discuss and hear any maybe program specific questions or other things that we didn't cover throughout the session today. Cool. Okay. Andrew, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to you. But before I do so, I'm going to launch a poll here just to get a sense of where people are at in their knowledge of SNAP E&T. So I'm going to launch that now, and you should see it pop up on your screen. I'll give everybody a minute to just read all the responses and then submit their answer choice, and then we'll go from there. Awesome. Thanks everyone for those responses. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll now. We have most of the people have answered. So sharing the results here, it looks like we have almost a perfect normal distribution of responses here. So Andrew, looks like we're working with some folks that have some knowledge here today, so we're not starting from ground zero, and then a couple of experts in the room as well.
All right, that is good to hear. And if you are any of the folks who are hearing about this for the first time, that is absolutely absolutely okay. Feel free to ask questions. And if you know a lot about this program already, again, feel free to ask questions. Like Simon said, feel free to put those in the chat as well. Simon will be monitoring the chat, and I'll try and keep my eyes over there as well. Or just feel free to raise your hand and come off mute, and we can talk a bit. We're also open to have some time at the end for a Q&A discussion. Anything else that we can do to support, please feel free to save that for that time as well. So what we're hoping to get out of today's session is first understanding some of the differences between SNAP eligibility and SNAP E&T eligibility, and kind of how to identify both and how do they apply to your current participant population. Secondly, understanding those referral pathways and intake processes with your state's SNAP administering agency. And again, both for SNAP and SNAP E&T, different processes, but absolutely connected. And then lastly, thinking about your population and thinking about how you're identifying folks who are receiving SNAP and other public benefits, and how you may be able to estimate the potential enrollment number if you were to be involved with a SNAP E&T program. Ultimately, there are two things that I think would be great to come away with as well. First, every state looks different. So this is an overview generally on what is happening in the country, right? But each one of your states is going to have a bit of difference to it. We'll talk about that again in a bit. And then secondly, really knowing that difference between SNAP and SNAP E&T and how they're connected, but also how they really do work separately. And SNAP E&T really supports SNAP more so than the other way around. Next slide, please. Okay. Simon, I think I see a gray box. There we go. Great, thank you. So just to start with SNAP eligibility, Simon, I think we have two questions that we wanted to just ask real quickly here. Does everyone know how to use the hand raise function in Zoom? I guess raise your hand if you know how to use the hand raise function. That might be a good way to do it. There we go. We see them. Great, 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 great. Okay. So the first question, if you can raise your hand, if your organization serves individuals who are receiving SNAP benefits. It may be different names in your state, but those food benefits associated in your state. Okay. Getting some responses here. Great, great to see. Okay. Second question. Does your organization support individuals to apply for SNAP benefits or encourage them to apply for SNAP benefits? All right, great. Seeing more hands, more thumbs up. And for those of you who don't, that's okay too. But just want to make sure that we have kind of a baseline understanding of what this eligibility looks like. And you're able to identify who at your organization may be able to benefit from SNAP. The way that I look at this program, and have always looked at this SNAP E&T program, in addition to SNAP, is if individuals are able to receive SNAP, great. It'll support them, especially if they make it into your SNAP E&T program, where they can get those workforce benefits and you can be reimbursed for that investment that you have. If individuals you work with are able to receive SNAP benefits and for whatever reason don't make it into SNAP E&T, they're still better off with those SNAP benefits, even however temporary that might be. So kind of keep that in mind. This is a really great support for individuals. So it seems like everybody has a good idea of what SNAP is, which is great. But looking at this just definitionally, right, for SNAP, the SNAP Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, it's a federal program that provides nutrition assistance to low-income individuals and families. They can use it at a lot of places, including grocery stores, farmers markets, and other places that sell food. So great benefit to individuals across the country. So for SNAP eligibility, as mentioned, every state does have nuances and a little bit different things that they look at as far as SNAP eligibility. But generally, it's 130% of the federal poverty level. There can be some deductions that can free up additional eligibility. But also some states also look at resources or assets that individuals may have. And that may include, savings accounts, or if they have multiple vehicles or things like that too. So keep that in mind as well. I'll say most states also have some sort of benefits calculator that you can go out and find for some of those other aspects beyond the income aspects. Household size and applicant age matter, and dependent age matters. So those things will come into play. And then some people are also subject to work requirements, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a bit. So at the bottom, this is just the general chart of on the federal level of household size, gross monthly income, and net monthly income for individuals who qualify. So any single member household who has a gross monthly income of $1,696 or below is very likely to qualify for SNAP. Again, those other factors play in. What I'll say, having a lot of conversations with individuals who are, SNAP eligible, potentially SNAP eligible, not receiving SNAP. Some of them are kind of surprised when they see this chart. It really is helpful. And if you go to the website at the bottom, that's the federal website for SNAP eligibility. Each state has a state website for it as well. They might have slightly different charts than this, but that chart can be really helpful when you're discussing SNAP eligibility with your participants in your programs. Again, generally 130%, but those other factors can play in. Next slide, please. So let's transition to SNAP E&T eligibility from SNAP eligibility. So to be eligible for SNAP employment and training, individuals need to be receiving SNAP in the month or months that they participate in a component. So that is very specific. If they apply in June, start receiving benefits in June, they're eligible for E&T in June. Individuals are sometimes on and off of SNAP depending on their recertification periods or other things like that. So that verification is monthly to ensure that they're receiving. So they need to be receiving SNAP in the month they participate. They need to not be participating in TANF or kind of your cash assistance program. Again, states have different names for SNAP, different names for TANF. But if you have questions on what those are, we can look them up as well. But TANF has a very similar type of services to SNAP E&T in a lot of ways. So the federal government has drawn the line on receiving SNAP, not receiving TANF. And then thirdly, it's for individuals who are able to work upon completion of the E&T program. This is a work-focused program. And E&T has a lot of different ways individuals can participate, from kind of just a simple job search with the focus of being employed after that job search, up to a 2-year college degree with the intent to work after. So that's really what we're looking at here, is individuals receiving SNAP, not receiving TANF, and kind of that ready, willing, able to work when they complete. Next slide, please. Okay. So the next piece is work requirements, which is dense. I would say use the hand raise function if you enjoy reading federal policy, but I don't think we'll see any pop up, and that's okay. So SNAP work requirements have changed since the passage of HR 1 last year. So we're really focusing here for SNAP E&T purposes on a population that is categorized as able-bodied adults without dependents, or ABODs, A-B-A-W-D. As you would expect, these are individuals who are able to work, do not have a disability, and do not have dependents under which they're receiving those SNAP, or with whom they're receiving those SNAP benefits, right? Who are approved in their household. There have been some changes, so this is what it looks like today. So again, these individuals are able to work. The age has expanded a bit, so it's currently 18 to 65. And these are individuals who do not have a dependent under the age of 14. So that 18 to 65 is expanded. Dependents were 18, but now it's under 14. So keeping that in mind, individuals who are, again, able to work, 18 to 65, do not have a dependent under 14, are eligible to receive 3 months of SNAP in a 36-month span, unless they're meeting an exemption. And so effectively, anyone who meets that is considered an ABOD, or an able-bodied adult without dependents, unless they are, have an exemption for a physical or mental disability. And that doesn't necessarily exclude them from participating in SNAP E&T, but that's something we can talk about more as well. But that would exempt them from the ABOD requirement, meaning that they could receive SNAP, continuously, not for only the 3 months in the 36. If they are caring for a dependent under 14, and then there is another criteria for being a member of certain Native nations. That information can be found on that eligibility website that Simon just posted as well. There were a few other categories of individuals who were exempt prior to HR 1, including people with housing insecurity, veterans, and former foster youth. But those exemptions have been removed. Other exemptions included kind of geography-based. So if they're especially in more populated areas, if there are not enough jobs for the number of people who would be considered ABOD, and so it'd be difficult for them to find work, those were exempt. Those are no longer exempt under HR 1. So what we're seeing is really a greater need for these individuals to be served. And so participating in SNAP E&T or another type of activity, work, volunteering, going to some sort of training or class for a minimum of 20 hours a week is another way to meet that requirement. So again, work, paid, or volunteer, participating in some sort of work program that can be WIOA. It could be TANF, it could be SNAP E&T, or some other work programs. And then any combination of that work and participation, adding up to 20 hours a week, can qualify someone to receive SNAP in months that are non-countable, right? And then there's another piece called workfare, which is a way to volunteer, and the amount of SNAP benefit they would get in a month divided by the local minimum wage would be the number of hours they would need to participate in workfare to maintain eligibility for SNAP moving forward. If an individual were to happen to lose eligibility because they used their 3 months, 3 countable months, they could regain their eligibility by participating at least 20 hours per week for a full month, and then they would potentially regain their eligibility. So it's not completely done if they've used their 3 months, 3 countable months, but it is a little bit more difficult to regain them, right? So it really is beneficial for individuals to kind of get ahead of it and make sure that they're participating or working or volunteering for that 20 hours before they use up their 3 countable months. This can get pretty dense, so I just want to stop real quickly to see if anyone has any immediate questions on kind of the work requirements and ABOD status.
You said these changes were effective as of 2025 last year.
Yes, correct.
Where can we be in the loop? What's the best place to stay in the loop?
Sure. That's a great question. I would say you can sign up for updates from the USDA on the USDA's website. They have newsletters and news updates. And you can choose whether you want nutrition related ones or farming related ones or things like that. So you can really get specific pieces there. That's where I see most of those updates. So that's where I would suggest starting. After we're done here, I can try and find the link and see if Simon may be able to send it out with the email. Kathy, I see your hand up.
Yeah, the on the number of hours for workfare,
Sure.
it seems to me like the benefit divided by the minimum wage would be less than 20 hours a week. Am I correct about that?
Yes, that's generally how that works. In statute, they're not able, an ABOD who's participating in the workfare is not allowed to go above that number of hours of volunteerism to qualify for workfare. So yes, it's likely it'll be under that amount. Workfare can be a really good option for people, especially if they don't have to do as many hours as they would otherwise. But where some individuals would rather participate in an E&T or a training program, they may get additional skills to be able to get a better work or more job skills than kind of the volunteer activity as well.
Yeah, that's very helpful. It's just so hard to meet the 20 hours a week if they can't find employment even after participating in the SNAP E&T program.
Correct. That's a big challenge. And I think some areas, some states are really looking into workfare quite a bit to try and support people in that way, which again is a really great option for a lot of people. But it's not necessarily building skills as much as those other types of activities. So it's really kind of a one or the other situation. But again, if they can get some sort of kind of resume builder with that volunteering, or be able to get some work skills that they can transfer to employment, that can be really helpful as well. One other note, I apologize. One other note, able-bodied adults without dependents, or ABOD, I've heard rumblings that term is going to be updated federally. So it's going to be time-limited participant rather than ABOD. I haven't seen an official change yet, but that's just a flag to look out for. So that would be time-limited participant, or TLP. So that's what a lot of states may be going with as well. Okay, next slide, please. So what is this connection from SNAP to SNAP employment and training for participants? And what can your organization kind of look for and start planning for if you're not already a provider? So first, you're going to want to identify who you're serving, especially in workforce-related programs that may align with E&T. Identify who is receiving SNAP or potentially eligible for SNAP. So if you have an application, if you have an intake process, an initial case management process, you can ask the question if they're receiving any public benefit or specific to SNAP, or if you're getting any other kind of existing data on income. And that data could be, just asking what their income is, asking what their work history is, asking where they currently work. If they're participating in TANF or recently were participating in TANF and no longer. If they're being referred from a food pantry or another organization that you're a partner with that you know is serving low-income people. These are all types of data you can look to identify and start to get an idea of what proportion of people you serve are receiving SNAP or potentially eligible. And that's really a key number when it comes to applying as a provider. If you're not currently a provider, when it comes to applying as a provider, talking to your state agency about becoming a provider, they'll have questions about what proportion of individuals do you serve on SNAP? How many people do you serve on SNAP? And that's going to be a really key number for them to understand the scope of what you're hoping to do as a provider as well. So secondly, as I mentioned earlier, encouraging clients to apply for SNAP can be really beneficial for them. And if you are a SNAP E&T provider, increase the proportion of individuals that you serve receiving SNAP and potentially increase the amount of reimbursement that you could potentially be eligible for and receiving back to reinvest in your programs. So, it's a good thing to know about, good thing to have in your pocket, and a good thing to support people with. So, to get those individuals at your organization who are receiving SNAP to be, participating in the SNAP E&T program, if you're a provider, there are two ways. One is a direct referral from your state or county SNAP agency. And so here it says state or county. Again, I mentioned earlier that there are some differences state to state. Some states have their SNAP administration by county, some have it by state. So it may come from your state eligibility workers or a county eligibility worker. And that direct referral is an individual who has applied for SNAP and had an interview or had a recertification. Generally, that's every 6 months to verify SNAP eligibility. And in the interview, they are screened as to whether they are required to participate, if they're considered an ABOD, if they meet another work requirement, and are referred directly to SNAP E&T to help meet that work requirement. So these are individuals who generally must meet some requirement, and E&T being a very good way for them to do that. And that's why they're being referred directly to a provider. The second way is for you, again, if you're identifying the individuals coming into your organization who are receiving SNAP, maybe you have a workforce program, someone wants to take part in that workforce program, and you identify that they're receiving SNAP. You can do what's called a reverse referral, where you provide information to your state saying this person claims to be receiving SNAP. They can bring in their notice of decision, or if they have their EBT card or something like that for you to verify. And your SNAP agency would check their eligibility to verify that they're receiving SNAP, and then do that kind of official referral, check the box in their system to do the official referral to SNAP E&T, and then you can continue serving them and enroll them into your E&T program. A lot of third-party partners, as many of you may be or may look to be, will depend primarily on those reverse referrals where you are already doing outreach for your programs. You're getting referrals from other community partners into your current programs, and then you're identifying their SNAP eligible and referring them to the state for SNAP E&T. The direct referrals also may be picking up, as we talked about with ABOD and time-limited participant requirements increasing for a lot of individuals or being identified for a lot more individuals. Those direct referrals we expect to pick up across the country as those get implemented and take effect across the country. So that's generally how those work. Again, broken record, but every state, every county can look different. And so really understanding how that process works, what a timeline is, what those expectations are, is really important as you move forward. Next slide, please. So how do you learn some of this information? There is a report put out every year. We haven't seen the 2026 one yet, but it's called the State Options Report from the USDA, Food and Nutrition Service. So states have a lot of flexibility in how they put SNAP together, put SNAP E&T together, including, like I mentioned, state versus county administration of the program, SNAP income and asset limits, the general work requirement and the ABOD or time-limited participant requirements, whether they have broad-based categorical eligibility, meaning if they're able to apply for some programs, it applies to others as well to kind of reduce that application documentation burden. And then other priorities, population, if there are certain populations a state wants to focus on, if there are certain areas of a state that are underserved or need additional attention from the SNAP E&T program. The types of partners they are looking for. Some states have a lot of colleges that are looking for community action agencies. Some have only employment social enterprise and want to move beyond that to training programs. So those are all different options that they have. And then the types of activities or components that they do. Some focus on work-based learning. Some focus on kind of college or adult basic ed. But those can be updated and they can change their program year to year based on those needs that they see in the state. So for more info on these types of things, check out that state options report. It has a lot of great information about your state. There are pages based on the type of option, but then there are also pages based on your state. So to see all the options at one spot. So really helpful to take a look at. Secondly, reviewing your SNAP E&T state plan, which is, if you've not seen one, a very big document that has a lot of things in it. But it will have all of the providers, or generally all of the providers in the state listed. It'll have the types of activities that are allowed or components that are allowed. The types of supportive services that are allowed for reimbursement. And a lot of times we'll have the state's priorities or a little bit of discussion on how they hope to expand over the coming years. Again, not universal. We'll see pieces of those information in different state plans. But again, that's a big document. So if you have questions on what that state plan entails, or if you're looking for a specific piece of information, feel free to reach out. We can help, I guess, translate what that looks like. And then lastly, for supporting SNAP, if you're able to find your local SNAP outreach provider, or maybe some of you in the room may be a SNAP outreach provider, you may be able to get more information to support SNAP application, info cards or postcards or one-pagers to kind of talk about SNAP or promote SNAP, posters to hang up to support SNAP. So that can be really helpful to have some of those conversations, or to introduce the idea of applying for SNAP to a participant and saying, well, think about it. Take this with you with a QR code to apply, but take this with you. Think about it a little bit more, right? So that can be really, really helpful. Potentially even a SNAP outreach provider could have staff come and talk to your participants about SNAP application and what it means. So a lot of options and a lot of resources here. Again, these are, the first two can be pretty dense. So again, feel free to reach out. There's a lot of information there, but it really can help frame up how you look at these programs. All right, next slide, please. So now we come to the question of how many potential E&T participants does your organization have? We have a lot of steps here, so we'll go through them. But some considerations, think about what kind of workforce and training related programs that you have, job readiness programs, on-the-job training, work-based learning programs. And then think about your non-federal funding resources. So with SNAP E&T, it is a reimbursement-based program in which third-party partners serve people, 100% paid for by non-federal funding resources that they have. And on the back end, they're reimbursed at 50%. And that 50% reimbursement can be reinvested. So again, spending 100% upfront and being reimbursed at up to 50%. And then think about who your clients are, who they are, from where they come to you, again, referral sources, and what their goals are. If they want to be right into employment afterwards, or if they're looking for something a little bit longer term for training or things like that too. So to think about who may be, just an estimate for SNAP E&T participation in your programs, start by looking at all of your clients. Narrow that down to those individuals who are receiving SNAP. And you can project out a few more if you're planning to encourage people to apply, right? But think about who's receiving SNAP. Of those individuals receiving SNAP, how many are in your workforce programs or training programs or work readiness programs? I apologize. I see that one's twice. Maybe we're just absolutely being sure that that's correct. And then think about those SNAP clients who are in your workforce programs that are also funded with non-federal funds. And that may include staff, may include the actual services or activities they're participating in, and it may also include the supportive services they're receiving. And that is your SNAP E&T clientele, those who are receiving SNAP in a workforce program, and that workforce program being funded with non-federal funds. We're really funneling down to what we have there. There are some ways to think about, if you do this calculation, it's a very small percentage. Again, increasing the SNAP proportion that you're serving, maybe adding a workforce program or adding referrals to workforce programs, or either applying for additional non-federal funds or shifting around funds so that you have non-federal funds to serve this population with workforce services. All ways to kind of think about maximizing your opportunity for SNAP E&T and SNAP E&T enrollment. And that's our information for today, but I'm sure that there are some questions on how to look at this program or SNAP E&T. So happy to hear any questions or have any discussion, or if you have thoughts, if we can go over anything again, happy to do that as well.
I can hear everyone just digesting all of that information right now, Andrew. I can maybe kick things off with a starter question while people start to digest and think through what they've learned. But I guess one of the things that is important to drill in, and you've mentioned it a couple of times, but this difference between a SNAP eligible population and a SNAP E&T eligible population. What does that look like in practice? Like, if you already are serving or think you're serving folks who might be eligible and receiving SNAP benefits, what does it mean to, I guess, feel out how much promise an E&T program could have in your organization?
Sure, that's a great question. So again, to begin with, a lot of programs serve low-income individuals, unemployed, underemployed, or individuals who are kind of looking for work, right? This doesn't mean that they're receiving SNAP, and it might not mean that they're eligible for SNAP. But again, asking those questions, finding out as much as you can, and encouraging people to apply, great. So to really pushing to increase that proportion of SNAP individuals you serve. But now looking at those individuals who may move forward to SNAP E&T, I think some folks are a little wary because this program is based on them participating and you getting reimbursement. It can be kind of a tough conversation to have, but there's a few ways to talk about it. First, if you offer additional resources for individuals who are participating in your SNAP E&T program, knowing that you're going to get reimbursed for those services, that can kind of increase participation rates, right? Secondly, and this is a conversation that I think can be tough for some, but has been really effective with a lot of people, is understanding that that reimbursement is coming back and helping to serve more people, and that someone else may have participated in SNAP E&T previously, and the reimbursement for their services is now funding this person to receive more services. So that's a really good way to talk about the program. And then just generally the connection, that I can't really say like a average number of people based on how many SNAP participants you have, but really it's looking at that alignment with the state or county program that you would be under. If you're looking at the state plan, you can go to components overview, and you can see what components are allowable in your state, and think about how many individuals you serve who may fit under programs that may align with those components. That's really the best way to take a look at this and understand what your availability, what your potential for SNAP E&T enrollment could be.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like people are still maybe thinking through things. So I will go ahead and maybe ask one more question that comes to
Sure.
mind for me that might be applicable, just given what we saw with the poll results at the beginning, where people seem to have some knowledge of E&T already and maybe are trying to figure out what next steps look like in terms of that interaction with the state. And so you mentioned, SNAP outreach partners and, the initial maybe stages of getting involved. Could you maybe, I guess, give some insight into where eligibility falls into the conversation with the state office, and I guess some of those next steps for people that might not yet be engaged with their state office but are interested in kind of moving further along?
Sure, that's a great question. So to start off with, if you want to talk to your state or county agency about potential partnership through SNAP E&T, if you look at the state plan, right up at the top, there's a contact. Usually that's the right person to contact. If not, you'll likely be directed to another individual within the agency to support that kind of kicking off. A lot of states have websites with some information to kind of start exploring E&T partnership as well, and a lot of background information. Some even have potential contract language or like a handbook for third-party providers that you may be able to consider and review. Otherwise, if you look at that state plan and you're able to see the contractor details, that's kind of towards the bottom of the state plan, and find any other providers that are currently contracted as SNAP E&T providers that you have partnerships with, and you can give one of them a call or shoot one of them an email and say, what does this look like? What does the opportunity look like for you? And be able to kind of understand it on a third-party partner level. That can also be really, really helpful. Because as you all know, I'm sure that you have participated in programs that are, federal, state, county, and on paper, there's all of this information, there's directions, there's, reporting, there's things like that. But then, actually in person, things don't quite look exactly like they do on paper. So it's a really good best practice to reach out to another provider locally or somewhere in your state to be able to just have a conversation about what this program looks like, and ask questions like, what did starting up look like? How many people are you able to serve every year? How do you connect that? And what does that growth look like? Year one can be a challenge, but growth is really, really a focus of this program. Because with any new program, there are new administrative requirements, and once those are kind of captured, once those are incorporated into the normal work that you're already doing, then you'll have more time to do outreach and more time to bring in those additional SNAP E&T clients and things like that too, right? So just kind of keeping in mind, the more you know, the better. right? And from the more angles that you can find that information, the better as well. And attending these webinars, right, Simon? Always a good idea to learn a little bit more about the program this way.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, thanks so much for that overview. I hope that helps people that are at that kind of decision point of thinking about whether or not it's something that's worth applying to or looking more into. We have lots of resources on our site, and our partners like SJI and other folks have lots of resources available online, and we're happy to help you with that. I'll use that as my transition into the kind of additional resources and ways to stay involved with the conversation. So I'm going to throw a link in the chat to NCRC's toolkit, which we released not too long ago, just a couple months back, that does a pretty good job, I think, like consolidating most of the resources that are out there and have been released over the years, and really walks you through, I think, each step of the process. It is a long booklet, not meant to be a sit down and read in one sitting type of thing, but it has a lot of I think also like workbooks and exercises that you can use to kind of map out your potential involvement with E&T, its potential value to your clients as well as to your organization's bottom line. And so we're happy to help you walk through that toolkit, but it also, I think, as a standalone resource, is something that could really be complementary to the learning that you're doing in these types of webinars. I'm also going to go ahead and throw my email in the chat as well. You can feel free to reach out to me anytime, and I'm happy to kind of connect you with resources or things that were discussed here. I can set up some follow-up time with anybody to discuss questions and maybe organization-specific things that weren't ready for the entire group to be involved with. But my email's in the chat, and I'm always happy to chat. But it looks like we have a couple minutes here to hang out. So we are done the contents of this webinar. But Andrew, if it's okay with you, I think we'll stick around here for a couple of minutes just in case anybody has any questions or wants to stick around to talk more about today's session. But thank you everybody for being here. We really appreciate it, and I'll give you 10 minutes of your afternoon back.